Thank you very much, Bob. Well, good evening and welcome to our January 28, 2021 open forum. We have 3 items on our agenda this evening. First, our agenda will be to feature the presentation of our refined proposed reopening of school plan presented by Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Kelly Neely, and Executive Director of K-12 Schools, Marianne Marshall. They'll give us an overview of the plan. We've worked steadily on this plan for months, and we have shared it with our principals. We've shared it with our cabinet, and we're going to share it with our community this evening. And we've sent copies of the plan to our school board, and we'll be discussing it with the school board, and hopefully we'll have formal approval of the plan on February 9th, and hopefully we'll have a study session with the board sometime before that. So on that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Neely and Marianne Marshall. Kelly and Marianne.
Hey everybody, I'm trying to share my screen here. There we go. Alex, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see it?
Got it.
Good. Okay, so this is our proposed reopening plan. It's pretty much a conglomeration of all the committee work that we did earlier this summer, and then we've continued to refine it over the school year. So the first thing that we have, and this hasn't changed from the very beginning, is we'll be moving into stage B, which is the blended model, online and in person. So our students will attend school face-to-face on Monday and Tuesday, or Thursday and Friday, depending on what cohort group they're in, if they're in A or if they're in B. Wednesdays are online learning days for everyone, with staff having office hours, planning, other activities that they do to support the students. So if you are A, if your children end up in A schedule, they are Monday and Tuesday in person, and Wednesday through Friday, they are remote learning online. If they are Schedule B, Monday through Wednesday, they're 100% online, and then Thursday and Friday, they're in person. And what the district has done is worked pretty hard to get the K-8 students aligned. We're trying to work that all the way up through high school, but it is really difficult once you reach the secondary schools. But for the most part, we have students in a family or who live in the same household. They are going to be in Schedule A or in Schedule B together. We also do have students and families who have decided to remain completely online. So we'll also address that. We wanted everybody to have options. So on face-to-face days, students will be screened as they enter the school facilities. Staff will instruct students on health and safety protocols, very important, and ensure they are following state health guidelines. All staff and students must wear face coverings and maintain social distancing. Marianne's going to go through the bullets that we have for those safety protocols.
First thing, we want our families and our staff to know that students must be up to date on their childhood immunizations before they start face-to-face. On a daily basis, parents of students in preschool through 4th grade must complete and send an attestation form prior to sending their students to school. Students in grades 5 through high school must either complete the online attestation form at home or complete it as they arrive at school. Students and staff must wear masks at all times, including on the bus. Students and staff must maintain 6 feet distance. Students and staff must have temperatures taken as they are screened into school, and students and staff must wash their hands periodically throughout the school day. In the event that students change rooms, the desk and shared equipment must be wiped down. Meals will be strictly grab and go. These are bagged meals. Visitors, unfortunately, are not allowed in the buildings at this time. And students need their own supplies, paper, pencils, backpacks, as students may not share supplies.
If you are worried about having supplies for your student, please contact the school. We're working our way through that. You know, this is not the time of the year where Target or Walmart are having the big school supply sales. So please do contact the school if you have any questions about that.
Mary Ann, excuse me, could you explain what attestation means?
So it's a form that parents will fill out either online for some grades. It just indicates that you're indicating that your child hasn't been exposed to one with COVID, that the temperature has been taken, and that they're healthy and able to come to school.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that term.
Are there any questions right now from anybody about the process coming in quickly?
Bob, are you able to?
I have one. Will we be getting new school lists, like school supply lists, so that we know what to buy for our children for the classrooms?
That is a really good question. And I think that, yeah, we will put something out for that. It's a great question. It wouldn't be the same supplies as we normally do. So thank you, Karen. That was really a good suggestion.
Sorry.
You try to think of everything, and then obviously every once in a while there's something else that pops up. So on to the blended model with AB days. We have a chart here that kind of breaks it down for us until it tells when everybody's coming back. So preschool, kindergarten, first grade. We're currently having small groups already attend school, but on Monday, February 22nd, we will be returning for those grade levels.
High school when
A group will go again on Monday and Tuesday in person, and B group will go on Thursday and Friday. After that, we will just continue on. Second, third, and fourth grade. Right now, we're doing small groups. They will be returning to school on Monday, March 15th.
Oh, that's a good question.
Fifth grade will be returning Monday, February 22nd. Seventh grade, or I'm sorry, I skipped six. Sixth will be returning Monday, March 15th. Seventh grade is returning on the 22nd of February, and everybody else comes back on Monday, March 15th. There is a small caveat to that, however. High school will be returning when the COVID numbers are below 200 per 100,000, and they'll need to be that for 2 consecutive weeks. I just noticed today that we were below 200 for the first time in a long time, so it looks like we're moving in a great direction. But this visual here is just a really quick peek at when everybody returns. We don't want to bring everybody back at the same time. We need to bring them back in smaller portions as we get things rolling, make sure we've worked through everything. Every room in the building has capacity levels. Some rooms can hold 15 and some rooms can only hold 10. It really just depends on the size of the room. Right underneath this is another chart that will help you specifically if you're looking for your grade level, and if you want to know what the return date is, when the teachers are there, when the students have hours, and if you're an A group or B group, they're asynchronous time. Asynchronous means that it's not a live lesson. It's something that has usually been recorded. It's not at the same time that the class is doing it. The kids can go back in at any time. We've been doing a lot of synchronous, live, and asynchronous, not live, instruction all during this time, and we will be continuing that. So I'm not going to read the entire chart to you, but just to look up here, I will start, let's go with grades 2 through 4. I can look here, find that they're coming back on March 15th. The school hours for certificated staff, that means the teachers, 8:30 to 4. Student hours are 9 to 2:30. We have 60 minutes of asynchronous instruction when the kids get home, and then Wednesday through Friday. And then group B is just the opposite of that. We will be, for our live days of instruction, getting out of school 60 minutes early on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. That allows the students to get home and the teachers to do their planning, and students will have asynchronous, not live, instruction when they get home. There will be much more information coming from your schools and from the district on what it is exactly they will be doing during that time. But for instance, one of the things is an online PE class that we'll be offering to them. This is pretty much standard for grades K through 8. Very, very similar. Preschool is coming back on the 22nd. They kind of have a different schedule. So their student hours, they have 2 groups. Their student hours are 9:30 to noon for the AM group and 1 to 3 p.m. for the afternoon group. They don't have asynchronous groups on those for those kids. If you move down to Shelton High School, Cedar High School, and Choice, you can see that they're different. And I'll be explaining that a little bit more, but they have different hours. They will go, the students at Shelton High School will go from 7:45 to 11:50. Cedar is 7:40 to 1:10, and so is Choice. So that chart right there is just a handy dandy quick glance at where your students are coming back, what times, that sort of thing. Attendance also, this is just one other little blurb that we want to cover. Attendance will be taken daily for the asynchronous learning that happens. So if your students are going home and they need to complete more work at home, attendance is taken, but what that just means is if they've logged in and they've done some of their work through the system, and that will show us that they've engaged. Doing okay so far?
So I actually have a couple questions. Tammy.
Hi, Tammy.
Hello, Kelly. So I just want to clarify, just have some clarifying things. So my daughter will fall under the K through 1, so 9 to 2:30. So, and then depending on what group she's in, she's only going to be in person 2 times a week. And then are all of her areas going to be covered? So like for the K-12 platform, you have X, Y, and Z that you're supposed to do for the day. So those will all be met, or will they have additional stuff to do when they get home, since that doesn't seem like the regular school day?
Really good question. So your kiddo will come to school. Let's say your child is in the A group. So on Monday and Tuesday, she'll come in. The teachers will be doing actual instruction. For the most part, the kids won't bring their lap or their Chromebooks. We want that to be live interaction instruction, where the students are getting the concept of the skill and they're practicing with it with the teacher. Then those other 3 days are the days where the student would be able to do that work that's connected to those skills. Let's say it was adding and subtracting 2-digit numbers. So the concepts are explained during that time, and then those other days they'll be working on it so that they've actually had that live interaction. The teacher can check for understanding, that sort of thing. And then they will have that 60 minutes later in the day, but I believe we're going to be assigning it's an independent PE class, so it's a lot of movement and things like that they can do on their own.
Okay, and then just so Belle, let's just say hypothetically, she goes to school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, she would do all of the online learning, right? So right now with that online learning, what that looks like for her is she has multiple sessions that are Zoom or through the K-12 program where she gets that extra support. But now with going in this model, if I do send her back to school, is she still going to have that support from a live instruction, or is it just going to be, okay, here's what you need to do on the K-12 platform, and there you go? Because I still struggle with the K-12 platform.
Yeah. The first 2 days, like you said, are that in person. And I forgot to tell you, yes, they'll be doing math and reading and getting extra help. And I'm sure that we'll get some science and social studies in during that time as well. But it is all K-12 for those other 3 days. However, we are trying to work out so that there's somebody that you can call, office hours, things like that, if you get stuck. It is a change. However, if a student, let's say they get an intervention and they've been struggling with reading, and those interventions will still continue. So if they're in an intervention group right now, I know some kiddos have that, and they have like Teacher Mary that they go to, and they for 20 minutes a day. Those will continue.
Okay, yeah. So then, and maybe this will be a discussion later on. So Bella is also on an IEP, and she has the specialists. Are you going to discuss how that part will look also?
Sure. Jenny, do you want to jump in here? Our Director of Special Services?
I'm trying. Okay.
There we go.
So the question is, how will specialists work?
She's on an IEP, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so my daughter has social emotional, there's a couple different areas. So she works with Miss Bingham, or I'm sorry, I don't remember the gentleman's name that now takes her
Probably Mr. Hack.
yeah, no, Miss Sandler, sorry, is for social emotional. And then she also has speech with Miss Bingham.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
So she has a couple different components, and then I'm just curious on how that will look, if that will be provided in person, or if that would still fall under here. We're going to do these still via Zoom.
So they've been asked to attempt to do the Zoom on the off days so students don't miss their instructional time in person if they can, and the students can benefit from that Zoom instruction time. If not, then they're going to have to do it in person. And then they would pull out for that service.
Okay, perfect.
It's going to be up to your IEP team, though. It could be that the SLP goes into the classroom. It'll really just depend student by student.
Okay.
Did we get you covered, Tammy?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Marianne, was there another question? Nope. Okay. Marianne is going to move into hybrid. Hybrid is the AB, in person for a couple days and remote the other days. So hybrid school day at a glance. And remember, this is just an overview, and it covers the whole district. So what they do at Mountain View might be a little bit different than what they do at Evergreen, which might be a little bit different than OMS. But these are the standard overview for the days for the district.
All right, thank you, Kelly. So if you have a preschool student, your student is going to arrive and they'll be screened in. The day will progress with one recess. There is no school on Wednesday due to deep cleaning requirements. And students attend school on Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Going on to kindergarten through 4th grade, let's take a look at what that day looks like. Again, students will arrive and they're going to be screened in. The student will grab a breakfast and proceed to the classroom to eat the breakfast, or in the cafeteria, depending on the school building. The day will progress with recess and lunch breaks. Students will be released from school 60 minutes early, and they will go, once they arrive home, they'll have until 11:59 that evening to log in and complete their 60 minutes of asynchronous learning. And then teachers will have a 50-minute planning period. Again, Wednesdays are asynchronous learning for everyone due to deep cleaning requirements between the groups, Group A and Group B. We move on down to Olympic Middle School, OBJH, and Choice. Again, students are going to arrive to school. They're going to get screened in, which means they're going to get their temperature taken. They're going to turn in their attestation form if they have one. Students are going to grab a breakfast if they need one, and they'll proceed to the commons, the lunchroom, or the classroom, depending on the building. And the day will progress with the lunch break. Students there will also be released from school 60 minutes early. They'll go home once they leave school and complete that 60 minutes of asynchronous learning. And they have until 11:59 in the evening to finish that. And teachers will also get in these buildings a 50-minute planning period. Again, just a reminder, Wednesdays are asynchronous learning for everyone due to the deep cleaning requirements between groups A and groups B.
I don't mean to interrupt, but there are some questions in the chat and I'm not sure that they're getting completely answered or who's responsible for answering them. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, it's okay, Janet. I do see that I was trying to follow something while Marianne was talking. I do see that like Chelsea Grady has answered a few, some other people have. We'll come back and make sure once we move out of this portion. But anybody can speak up at anytime they want if they have a cookie for it. So OMS, OBJ, and choice. Students arrive and are screened in. This is very similar to the other schools. Students grab their breakfast meals and proceed to either the commons, the lunchroom, or the classroom. It kind of varies from school to school. The day progresses with a lunch break. Students are released 60 minutes early again. They have that 60 minutes of asynchronous, and the teachers have planning. Again, Wednesdays are for the deep cleaning. And I know that we've talked about, it's been at every single one of these, but the guidance for health and safety is to pod the kids, to keep them together in their groups. So we're going to attempt that the very best that we can. And so that's why we have A days back to back, the day between for really deep cleaning, and B days so that they're potted together. And teachers will, when we get up into the secondary level, kids are moving around, but we will have the wiping down of the desks and the shared things in between. Cedar High School, students arrive and are screened in. They grab their breakfast meals and they proceed to the classroom or the common spaces. Classes will live stream lessons. This is a little bit different than the elementary, middle school, and junior high. So classes will have live stream lessons that the teacher's teaching in front of the kids, but they're also streaming the lesson at the same time for those kids at home. Students are released at 1:10. They grab their lunches and are released, and they have that asynchronous learning. Again, Wednesdays are the deep cleaning day. Shelton High School is very similar to Cedar. The students arrive, are screened in, they grab their meal. Classes will also live stream those lessons, so the teachers will have half the class in front of them, half the class at home, and they're live streaming that lesson. Students are released at 11:50. They grab their lunches and then they're released to go home. They'll take their food with them. The students here have an hour and 50 minutes of asynchronous learning at home, with Wednesdays being that day. So as an overview, K-8 is doing it in a very similar manner, and choice for the most part, but not completely. And Cedar and Shelton High School are doing the live streaming. So that's kind of set up in a little bit different manner. Live streaming really isn't the best setup for kindergartners and first graders, second graders. So we're not doing that. Teachers can, but they're not required to do that.
All right, so you guys might be wondering, what does 100% online instruction look like for students? And we're gonna walk you through that, starting with preschool. So in preschool, if your child is 100% online, they're gonna receive instruction both synchronously, which is live, and asynchronously on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and their hours will be from 9:30 to noon. Attending scheduled live lessons is an expectation, but students will be able to access asynchronous class lessons until 11:59 p.m. every day. Really, if you could scroll. All right, so online for K-8, students will receive instruction both synchronously and asynchronously Monday through Friday. And as you see for Bordeaux, Mountain View, and Evergreen, the hours will be from 9 to 3:30. OMS's hours will be from 8 to 2:30. And OBJH's hours will go from 7:55 to 2:25. Attending scheduled live lessons, again, it is an expectation, but students will be able to access asynchronous class lessons until 11:59 p.m. Students will continue to receive teacher-supported asynchronous instruction on Wednesdays, but the schedule may vary based on PLCs, staff meetings, and team collaboration. Kelly, if you want to go over our high schools.
Sure will. I wanted to go back to the Wednesdays because it mentions it down through this entire list. Wednesdays, the schedule can vary because we are moving our early release Fridays to Wednesdays. So let's say if we were on the week of February, I don't know, 22nd, if there was an early release originally scheduled for Friday, it's now on that Wednesday. So if teachers wanted to do a live lesson, now remember this is 100% online. If they wanted to do a live lesson, they probably wouldn't have it during that time that we had a PLC meeting. They would schedule it earlier in the day. So that can vary a little bit. Shelton High School, students will attend streamed lessons synchronously from 7:45 to 11:50 daily, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday. So they're at home this whole time, but they're being streamed into the classroom, or the classroom's being streamed into their home. Attending live, again, attending those live lessons is an expectation because that's where they can get those questions answered, things can come up for them. It's just a better way to do it. But let's say you're not feeling well that day, or you're taking care of somebody else, and you can't make that lesson's recorded, and the kiddos can go back later and do that lesson. Asynchronous learning will take place from 12:30 to 2:20, daily, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday. And then again, students will continue to receive teacher-supported asynchronous instruction on Wednesdays, but their schedules can vary. Cedar High School, students will attend, this is very similar, will attend lessons synchronously from 7:40 to 1:10 daily, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Live lessons, it's an expectation, but we do have that asynchronous one if we miss them. Or one of the things that I like too about having the recorded lessons is, you think you know what you're doing. Then you go off by yourself and you're doing like math and you forget some pieces of it. You can always go back and listen to that recorded or watch that recorded lesson, which is a good thing. And then asynchronous will take place 60 minutes after stream lessons on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Students will continue to receive teacher-supported synchronous or asynchronous instruction on Wednesdays. It can vary. And then choice is different because their students have individual written learning plans for each kiddo. So their asynchronous lessons will depend on the plans that they have for each student. That's what we have for our plan.
Kelly, I've noticed that in the chat box, people are wondering, are students going to be required to bring their Chromebooks back and forth? And I know we've discussed this. We don't want our littles, and we say our littles being like K6, K8, we don't prefer that they bring their Chromebooks back and forth just because it costs, that screen it's really delicate. And if that screen breaks, it's $40 to $70 to replace it. Now, we understand that there are going to be junior high and high school teachers that students will need to bring a Chromebook, and that's okay. But for our littles, we don't want them to bring their Chromebook back and forth every day to school.
Yeah, also, I just saw in the chat, high school students, yes, they're different, as Marianne said. But let's say I'm a fourth grade teacher at Bordeaux, and I have a special thing that I want to do with the kids. Each school is going to have at least one Chromebook cart that they can use for their class while they're there that day. Of course, we'll take all the precautions, wiping them down, so that we don't have to have the kids bring them back and forth. And the idea, again, is that they already get a lot of screen time during the week, so we don't want them necessarily to be on those computers the whole time when they're at school. Kind of defeats the purpose. I kind of went through the chat and I didn't see anything that hadn't been answered, but will teachers have backup computers available when students forget to bring them? Yeah, Tiffany, I'm not really quite sure how many will be at Shelton High School. It's quite large, but we will have some sets of them there. Is there anybody else that has a question that I haven't answered in the chat box or Marianne hasn't answered?
So it's Tammy again.
Hi, Tammy.
I'm so full of questions and I apologize. And I just want to highlight and say that you guys are doing absolutely amazing. And myself as a parent, I really appreciate that. This has to be really difficult. So my questions are surrounding, so I understand they're going to go through the screening process, and I think I missed a little piece on the paper that people fill out. I think what I heard was you have to say whether or not you were exposed or the potential for being exposed to COVID. So I have a couple different questions on that, so I work in an environment where I don't know if I've been exposed, right? So my other question for that would be, so Bella's in class, all of a sudden on, whatever day somebody contacts the school and says, hey, my kiddo has COVID. So then what would that process look like? So my kid kept her distance, she had her mask on. Are we going to be told about that exposure? What are the guidelines for that? So it's kind of a multi-question. What would the guidelines be for that? Is it a mandatory 2-week quarantine? And are they going to be required to be tested? I'm just trying to have the most information to make an informed decision.
Yeah, Tammy, those are really great questions. And I'm going to let our director of facilities answer that question for you. Robert.
Hi, Tammy. So part of the questionnaire process, whether the student fills it out themselves or it's from the parent for our younger students, is the question of whether you've been COVID tested in the last, I think it's 10 days. And so that's what we're using to also help to screen people out, because we don't want to be in a position where we get a notification like in the middle of a school day, hey, I just found out my kid has got COVID and they had been tested several days ago, and we had them in class and potentially exposing people. So we are trying to capture that as much as we can. Of course, everything's on the honor system, but really the whole thing is that, when we have additional things as a part of the screening process, we are, physically trying to evaluate a student quickly, whether they look like they're ill with any symptoms at all. If someone's ill, we send them, no matter what the symptoms are. If it's not part of a pre-diagnosed illness, we send them home. We just can't take risks at the time. And so we really need our parents and everybody to help cooperate, and please don't send your kids to school sick during this time. And then also they're going to go through that evaluation. They're also going to take their temperature. And so we're hoping to catch these quickly, and so we don't have the potential to spread. But we do have plans in place that if something happens and one of the students after the screening process starts to get ill for any reason, whoever is that child's in that care and observes those symptoms, whether it's a teacher or anyone else that's in their care in the building, they immediately contact the office, and that student's taken to isolation. And then we're going to evaluate them again to see what is going on. And in nearly every instance at that point, we're probably going to contact the parent, and we're going to send them home. So if someone's at home for health reasons, for any reason, they can't return for 72 hours to give them an opportunity to get better. And we're going to recommend, we can't of course require or make anyone test, but we're going to recommend if there are COVID symptoms that they get tested. And then we're going to continue to follow up with parents to find out if they did take tests, and so we can monitor and find out whether they can return. Now, if we have an instance where a student has been exposed to somebody who is COVID positive, they are required by our procedures and by the recommendations of the Mason County Health Department to quarantine for 14 days. And so at that point, we're going to, contact parents, and we'll have those discussions, about the quarantine needs to happen and so forth until the period is over. So there's a lot of things that we'll be working with everybody. We're going to continue to communicate with parents as we get closer to that, what our expectations are, how these will work, and the need for quick pickup of children, and if something happens and there's any illness symptoms as well, and also help with the cooperation. We really need parents to really partner with us and keep the kids home for all of this to work for everybody.
So then like I said, I have lots of questions. So then my other question would be, so Bella's potentially exposed. She's home. She's quarantined for the 14 days, right? Because she's had that direct contact exposure. She goes back to school the following week. Okay, John Doe now has parents have called and said, hey, my child's exposed. So now yet again, she has to go back home, quarantine for 2 weeks. I'm just trying to see, I honestly, I'm just trying to figure out realistically what the best route is going to be going forward. Because if my child has to quarantine for 14 days and is exposed, potentially I will have to do the same thing. I'm one of the lucky ones. I've not lost my job and I've been working through this whole COVID. So I'm just trying to get a better picture of what that's going to look like. And then if that starts happening, what is the school going to do? So, hey, we're 2 weeks in, we have multiple students, 1 or 2 students, that have tested positive, or their parents have said they've tested positive. And then come a week later, 2 weeks later, we have more students that are testing positive. Is the school what is the protocol for the school to shut back down and go completely all online?
Yeah, those are great points then. These are things that we spend a lot of time staying late in the evenings and having meetings and going over and all these different scenarios. And we even hear of things that we haven't even considered. But I can tell you that, first of all, I just want to let you feel some assurance. Fortunately, there's been counties and schools that have gone a little bit for us that we share communications with and everything. And the scenarios, as you've outlined there, are not quite happening like that, where we have a student that's exposed and then they're out for 14 days and then exposed again. Fortunately, we're not to that level of the pandemic, and things seem to be getting better and trending better. So I'm optimistic, and I hope for all of our students that we're not going to have a scenario quite that severe where we have one student that's really being impacted because there's sphere of influence around them and people that are testing positive. But if that happens, we're going to work together. If it's just located with one unfortunate student that just happens to be in the wrong connection point, we're going to do the best we can to try to work with you and that family in that situation to try to help anything we can for continuity of education, as long as we can do so safely. But there are metrics and things that we will be monitoring that could require another shutdown. And there's even other scenarios where only the high school age students may have to shut down. And so, if right now we're on a downward trend, but if things start to trend, just as bad as it was for the last 2 weeks, again, and it's for a sustained period of time, we're going to work with our board, the school board, and we're going to take that information. And there are scenarios where we could have to close down, but that is not something that we're trying to do. We're going to do everything that we can, as long as we can. If it means doing more protocols or maybe even additional hiring of other staff, if there's other things that we can do to keep schools open and do so safely, we're going to do that. But I just be honest, there are scenarios that could happen, but it's going to really, it's so dynamic, everything that's going on. It will have to be on a case-by-case basis, and we'll be working and partnering together to try to keep the risk as low as possible and our doors open.
And I promise I have only 2 more questions, and then I will let other people have a chance. So I just, for my own well-being, and I like to have visuals, and I'm not asking to come to the school, but I need the visuals, honestly, to see like what the classroom's going to look like how many kids are going to be in that class. Stuff like that would help me personally to make a more informed choice. And then also my other question surrounds when say I'm putting my child on the bus, what is that going to look like? And if these are too many questions all at once, Ms. Johnson already said that I could talk to her later, which I love talking to her. So I have so many questions, but I will end with those 2.
Yeah, those are great points. And I'll say this, that normally we would just invite you in and say, hey, come here, and then we'd have an open house, come in and check out things. But we're going to do the next best thing, and we already have Chelsea Brady and our other principals are working on the videos that they're going to highlight these things, what a classroom is going to look like, how things are functioning. This is what the screening looks like. And so we're excited that we're going to be able to do that to help, build some more confidence in how things are going to look in their schools. And Chelsea, I don't know if you want to touch a little bit more on that.
I think that let's let Chelsea do that presentation here in a minute. I think it's going to answer, Tammy, a lot of your questions. We still do have some questions in the chat box that need to be answered, but I think you'll get a clearer view, Tammy.
We have quite a few, excuse me, we have quite a few questions that have probably already been answered in terms of the chat box, but I'm going to ask that everybody be patient, and by 3 o'clock on Monday morning, every question will be answered and it will be placed online.
Thank you,
So
Dr.
by
Russell.
3 o'clock on Monday, the 1st of February. Our second presentation of the evening will feature Chelsea Brady, principal of Olympic Middle School, who will present what school will look like beginning on February 22nd, 2021. Obviously, a different look and a new beginning. Chelsea.
Thank you.
And before you
It was-
begin, I might have to extend this open forum for 10 minutes because I want you to have the time to present what you've observed and so on.
Thank you. I appreciated those questions, Tammy, because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about next. And I think it's a lot of the things that our parents are thinking about, staff are thinking about. I know I was thinking about, so I'm going to share my screen here. And Marianne, can you give me a thumbs up if that's shared okay? Okay, awesome. So I had an opportunity last Friday to go and visit Chehalis Middle School with my assistant principal, Ms. Kundal. We decided to go and visit a school that has already been in hybrid for a while because we had the same fears that everybody else has, a lot of the same questions that we've been hearing tonight, a lot of the trepidation about what it means to actually be in the hybrid model. What about the fact that my child will only be in school 2 days a week, and what does that really mean? And what do these safety protocols look like? And it felt like a very large mountain to climb. And so we decided to go and visit a school that was already in session. And so we visited Chehalis Middle School. One of the reasons that we chose this school is because it had 650 students enrolled. So it was comparable in size. Some of the surrounding small schools had been able to go in session, but it's hard to compare a school that only has 100 students versus, some of our much larger schools. So that was one thing we wanted to take a look at. They had very similar demographics to ours. They also, when we looked at their program, had 113 students online and about 270 students that attended per hybrid group. So pretty large groups. We're excited to see what their systems look like. And then again, their COVID numbers, we wondered, so do they look better than we do in their community? Is that why they're able to do this? But on the day that we went down there, their numbers were 551 per 100,000. Ours were 497 and have since dropped actually down to, as of today, 195. Someone mentioned we finally got below 200. So that's really exciting. So that's why we chose that particular school. So our visit included, we made sure that we were down there in time to see screening. So you've heard a lot tonight about screening, and I'm going to show you some pictures of what it actually looks like in practice. So we were there from screening time all the way through lunch so that we could see arrival and breakfast and passing times and what does lunch look like with all of those students in the cafeteria. We met with the administration and peppered them with a lot of questions. We had a teacher come down during her planning period and share all about her experience. And then we purposefully, as we toured the school, we stopped and talked with staff members that were in all different roles. So we talked with counselors, secretaries, paras, we talked with food service, we talked with teachers in all of the different classrooms. We were very lucky in our tour in that we got to see these classes in session in all different subject areas, grades 6 through 8. And so we had an opportunity to have a lot of conversation. And I have to be honest, knowing that I had some anxiety about hybrid going in, I kind of expected when I had some of these conversations that I would hear as I told them, I'm here because we are preparing for hybrid. I expected to hear, oh boy, or get ready, or just some of those things, watch out. I kept waiting for it. But that is not what I heard. And so I want to share with you what I did find. So all of these people that we spoke with had similar sentiments, and I want to share those with you.
these conversations that we had with them were independent of one another. And I heard some of the same things. Number one, it's so doable. And then they would talk about some of the systems that they have in place and they would show them to me. And again, I'm going to show you these pictures in just a moment. Above all else, it's worth it. So even as they were talking about some of the barriers or some of the things that are stressful, they said, but it's worth it because we have kids in the school. And then we're so excited for you. I mean, I think every teacher we talked to when we explained while we were there said, oh, we can't wait. We're so excited for you. And as we were leaving the building, the same thing. It was a really incredible experience. They have been in session since October. So they weren't in the honeymoon phase. They were in it. They were in the trenches and they still were saying that to us. So that was really huge. And I have to tell you, 10 minutes after being there, my assistant principal and I looked at each other and said, oh my gosh, I can't wait. Seeing kids back in the building, even though they were wearing masks, even though they were socially distanced, even though we watched them go through screening, they were in the building, they were learning in the classroom, they were able to interact with each other, they were interacting with staff. Those are the things that were missing. So it was just really exciting. So I'm going to share some pictures with you because I know the visual for me helped me to come back and feel like I could wrap my brain around it and make it happen. So here are some pictures from arrival. So their building was set up so that they have two doors here, one entrance. So all of their bus riders, their drop off, walk to school, ride my bike, no matter how you get to school, they came through the same entrance. Most of our schools have two entrances, so we'll even have less kids trying to go through the same area. As you can see here, they had admin outside the door. We just stood back and watched what it looked like. Admin had hand sanitizer in their hands. They had another staff member out there that had a box of masks. As kids got off the bus and came off, all of them had masks on, but they were ready in case they didn't, to make sure that they were wearing a mask upon entering the school. As just like in Shelton, Chehalis, they have to wear masks on the bus. So all of those students were good to go, but they did have a couple kids walk up and said, hey, I need a mask. And they were able to hand one to them. So admin would squirt hand sanitizer in their hands and say, okay, have a great day. I mean, it was a really nice feeling when the kids were arriving to school. Upon entering, students went through a screening process. So the way that Chehalis does it, students come in, they have their temperature taken, they're turning in an attestation form, similar to our process, but we actually were lucky enough that we had some screening machines purchased. So that's going to make ours move even faster. So we're super lucky to have that. What I was picturing, I have to just be honest, what I was picturing with this screening process is students wrapped around in long lines and how are we going to make this work? It did not look like that. Students trickle in and they arrive in a staggered fashion the same way they do traditionally. The only difference is they need to be screened when they come into the building. So I kept waiting for the line and it never came. When they entered the building, you just heard Marianne Marshall and Kelly talk about some of our practices, and it was very similar. They had grab and go meals for breakfast. And so students came in, and if they were having breakfast, they grabbed their meal, they went over to the seating area, they sat down and they were able to have breakfast. The rest of the students that arrived headed off to their classroom and waited there. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing in Shelton School District. When students arrive, if they need breakfast, they'll be able to get it and eat in the cafeteria. And the rest of the students will be heading to their classrooms, and teachers will be in the classrooms upon arrival. And so again, any of those normal situations in a traditional school year where we have groups of kids, we will not have groups of kids. And so that's one of those systems that they have in place that we will also have that will really help in the morning. So our big takeaways just from arrival, and that was huge because the screening and just getting kids into school was one of the things I was most worried about. But some of the takeaways that we had is what it really means to have about a fourth or less of your total student population. The CDC released an article recently, and they were encouraging reopening schools. And they said, if you're going to do it, make sure that you have these things in place. They said, do the hybrid model because we cannot have all of our students in the building at one time. Make sure that they're wearing masks and that you're screening and social distancing. I read that article and was like, check, check, check. We're doing all of those things. We're on the right track. But truly seeing what it looks like to have a fourth of your students there, I was able to take a big breath. And so on February 22nd, which is what we are preparing for right now, our elementary schools will all have between 60 and 75 students. That's it. We have pre-K1 going back. It's between 60 and 75 students per group. OMS will have about 90 and OBJH about 100 per group. So that is a very doable number. And, you know, it really meant something to see that in person. I think it's very hard for all of us to shake out of our minds the difference between what was and what is. So I don't have to plan for 600 kids coming into my school. I'm going to be planning for 90. And so that really helped us to change the way that we were looking at our procedures and our systems and, you know, just making sure that it's manageable and easy for our families. So again, I've mentioned this several times, but one of the big takeaways was the lack of backup in the screening lines. So I am certain that, you know, in that first week of school, as we're teaching the kids what to do, you know, it might look a little bit different, but certainly not wrapped around the building as I had imagined in my nightmares. So we also revisited our staff roles and setup to make sure that it would fit that model. And then the big thing that we heard from the administration and from the teachers when we said, how did you get prepared for this? Because it's working so well, is they talked about the importance of pre-teaching systems and protocols to our students, to our parents, to our staff members. And so that's what we are doing. We are rolling all of this out. You know, this is step one to be able to show our reopening plan in more detail. We're working with our staff. Our buildings are going to be pushing out information to our families. You heard Kelly mention that we're working on a video. I think Robert mentioned that as well. And so right now, Shelton School District is working on putting together a video to answer some of those questions. So exactly what does it look like from the time my student's on the bus? What are the expectations when they get on the bus? And a visual of what it looks like. What happens when they get to school? With some bullet points of what those expectations are. And what does it look like coming into the building? What do our classrooms actually look like? So I'm really excited about this. I'm going to be helping with this video. And so it will actually give a visual of all of those things. I think that'll be very helpful for our families. And then of course, every school is going to be sending out much more detailed information. Tonight is an overview. So I want to talk for a minute about classroom setup. So again, we're going through a very similar process right now in Shelton School District. So what Shahela shared with us was a couple of tips we were able to take back with us. So we're, again, not reinventing the wheel. So one of the things, and this is the same process we're taking, is normally when we're starting a traditional school year, teachers get their classroom set up and they make it really warm and everything for students, and that's awesome. This time when we're setting up, safety is our first lens. And so of course we want it to be warm and inviting, but number one, we want it to be safe. And so right now our custodians are helping to establish how many students can safely be in each classroom. So they have a formula for that. They're getting desks set up. You know, Shahela said, hey, one thing we found is putting some tape down on the floor, some sort of visual, so that if desks start to shift after they've been set up, and for any teachers on here, you know that your desk can be in perfect order, and 10 minutes after students get here, they look a little different. So put some tape on the ground so we can keep them lined up and keep students safely spread out from each other. And little things at the secondary level, considering using backpacks instead of lockers so that students can hang on to their own supplies and their own materials, because we are avoiding any sharing of materials. And so we're going through that same process right now. So this is a look again at the Shahela's classrooms. I have to tell you how nice it was to walk into a classroom and see this. see our students in there learning. It was just really exciting. It gave me energy. I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to get our students back in the classroom. We walked into an ELA classroom and a teacher was reading Island of the Blue Dolphins to her kids, and they physically had the book in their hand, which is just different from the computer. So anyways, it was really great to see. So this just gives you a visual of what it looks like to have, you know, about 15 students in a classroom. Their classrooms were pretty similar to our size. And so we're looking at 15 students or less per classroom. So on this slide, you can see, actually, there's the teacher reading Island of the Blue Dolphins. Over here in the upper right-hand corner is a special ed teacher, and she has a small group of students that she's working with. So you heard Jenny Lafreniere mention whether students are staying online only or they are returning in the hybrid model, they will continue to receive that instruction. So students will continue to receive intervention services and special ed services, whether they're online or in the hybrid model. So just to take a quick peek, I took a couple pictures so that you could see what some of our own Shelton School District classrooms look like, because as I mentioned, we're all going through this process right now. So here's a couple of the classrooms at Olympic Middle School that are getting set up and ready. And so our classrooms, most of them are measuring about 15 students. And so we have those set up and ready. I just wanted to kind of give you a glance. And some of our classrooms have tables. Some of them have desks, but our custodians have gone in and marked the areas that we can safely have students. Another interesting thing that I wanted to see was passing time. For those of us that are in secondary schools or 6th grade and above, students often will pass from class to class. Even if it's just one transition time, it was really nice to get a visual of that. What it reminded me, watching students walk, I had this visual in my mind that they were going to have to, you know, be carrying a yardstick practically and stepping on dots throughout the hallway. And I couldn't shake that image. However, seeing what that passing time actually looked like was kind of refreshing. And I came back and I talked with our safety director and said, talk to me about this. And he reminded me that OSPI has put out guidance to say, in conjunction with, you know, CDC and Department of Health, students will pass each other in the hallway the same way we pass each other in the grocery store. And that's not considered an exposure. So it is safe. That's why we're having them wear masks. So we know that they're going to pass each other in the hallway, that they may get closer than 6 feet at a couple different times during the day. But anytime that they're going to be in a planned setting where they're sitting down or doing an activity for more than 15 minutes, they need to be 6 feet apart. So that would be our classrooms, that would be our lunchrooms. Those are those places where they absolutely need to be 6 feet apart. Passing in the hallway for a 3-minute passing, it's okay that they're going to be walking closer to each other. It's not considered exposure. So that was a great reminder for me. At the end of each period, they had kind of just a great system that I know we're planning to do, where teachers, as students come in, they use hand sanitizer. As they leave the classroom, they use hand sanitizer. Just an extra step that we can take to be even more safe. So one of the teachers said, yeah, it's kind of silly because I just gave her a squirt of hand sanitizer and she is literally going to walk across the hallway and get another squirt of hand sanitizer, but that's okay. Makes everybody feel better. And that's important too. So bathrooms are another thing. You know, we want to make sure that we don't have more than a couple students in the restroom at a time. And how do you manage that without sticking an adult in the bathroom, which is obviously not okay for a lot of reasons. So we have 2 different systems that we looked at down at Chehalis that are working really well for them. Some of our elementary administrators went down and visited Chehalis Elementary and got some great tips from them. So you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, that was the system that they had set up, where students had tags and they had hooks hanging on the bathroom. And if they go to use the restroom, they hang their little hook on there so that people can see, oh, there's already 3 students in there. I can't go in. So that's great for elementary. They need more of a visual. And so I know that our elementary schools are planning something similar. For our older students, just teaching them the expectations and then having a visual to back it up, they said has been sufficient. So they taught that expectation. They had posted on there 2 people at a time in their restroom based on the size. And then what they did is they closed a stall in the bathroom and they closed a sink, so that really you could not have more than 2 people in the restroom. And then you can see the foot placard that they put out there so that if somebody needed to wait, they could wait there safely. So lunch, we purposefully stayed long enough to see lunch. Because I know probably for parents as well, it's what does lunch look like? It's normally such a crazy, chaotic time. However, with all of these safety protocols in place, it is actually very tame. Funny story, Shahala said that after the first week of their lunches, it was so quiet that they chose to put on music, because students were just kind of sitting there like, oh, we haven't been in school in a while and we're not sure how to interact. So they put on music. Students were able to loosen up a little bit and start having some conversations with each other, 6 feet apart, but they can still hear one another. So you can see their system that they chose to implement, which is that they have desks in their cafeteria, so students have individual seating. So all of our schools are preparing for what their cafeterias will look like. Some of them will have desks, some of them have small enough tables that we're able to make it work, but we are able to safely have students in the cafeteria for lunch. So I just wanted to quickly show some things that we have gotten done in these last couple of weeks. So the picture on the left, that's of Olympic Middle School. We are lucky enough, we have tables that break apart. And so we were able to set them up. We're going to have about 60 students per lunch, and they will of course be 6 feet apart. And so we kind of have our cafeteria set up and ready to go there. That center picture are hand washing stations. So all of the schools around the district will have extra hand washing stations so that students and staff have appropriate amount of bathrooms and facilities to wash their hands throughout the day. And then as I mentioned at the beginning, we are lucky enough that we actually have screening machines. So you can see a picture of that on the right. So that's at the entrance of our building. So you can see both the screening machine, but also the signage that has been put down so that students know where they can line up to safely continue to be 6 feet apart from one another. And then we have our screeners that they'll walk up to, and it will take their temperature on there. So that's pretty exciting. So that is my presentation. I'm going to stop share here. But I hope that that gives you kind of a visual of what we're working on and might have answered some of your questions. But I will go ahead and turn it back over to you, Dr. Apostle. You are muted right now, though.
Chelsea, that was a wonderful presentation. We appreciate you going to Chehalis, bringing back that information and sharing what our schools are going to look like on February 22nd. We've had a great number of questions, and I would like to ask Katie, when is our next open forum scheduled for February?
I believe it's the 28th. Let me double check really quick though. Sorry, my internet's slow. You can keep talking if you want. I'll let you know.
What I want to do, obviously, is move that earlier in February so that we can focus, in addition to answering these questions online, having an open forum that focuses on the questions that have been asked this evening. So okay. Stay tuned. I'm going to move that open forum earlier in February.
It is currently scheduled for, sorry, sir. It is currently scheduled for February 25th. I created the invite for it, so I know what it is.
Yeah, it's too late. I'm going to move it up, and we will focus on responding in person or through Zoom to these questions. And we'll do it early in the month so that we're all on the same page as we move towards February 22nd. I really appreciate everyone's attendance. I appreciate all the work that our staff has put into this project. It's not been easy. It's not a simple solution. It's not clear cut. There's a lot of ambiguity involved, but we're dealing with it very successfully. And I have great faith in our staff and in our program that February 22nd, hopefully the virus is still under control, that we can start school and start bringing our kids back to school. So on that, stay tuned for an earlier date on the next forum, which will focus on the questions that were asked this evening. And by 3 o'clock Monday, we'll answer the questions and place them, the answers online. But I still want to come back in an open forum and deal deeply with some of the questions that have been asked. I know that some of the questions have been responded to, but I just want to make sure we're very clear in terms of our direction. So that will conclude this segment of our open forum, and we will go into the Spanish speaking forum. We're a little late, but we'll get started right away.